Wake up, buyer payer people. It's a beautiful day. Go grab yourself another cup of joe and say hello to Jim and Michelle Rhoads on the Buy Here Pay Here Morning Show. Take it away, you two.
Hello. Good morning. Happy Friday.
Friday?
It's Friday again.
Yeah.
Weeks just go by. Like I remember as a kid, you'd just like it drags on.
Yeah.
You're waiting for something. And I remember my parents saying things like, the older you get, the faster it goes.
Yeah.
That is true.
Yep.
It's
been a busy week.
It has been
I had
a
some
busy
extra
week.
working on our business meetings.
Yeah,
and,
some really great meetings.
Yeah, very, very productive.
Mhm.
And so that's called kind of helping to move us toward what's next.
Yeah.
And we've got some news that's just on the horizon for us. There's some announcements we should be able to
Yeah.
make quite soon.
Yep.
And what else
Yeah.
do you have for news of the day?
News of the day. Our friend Steve Levine and the Ignite have
Richard Hudson.
They have officially joined the Buyer Payer United conference
with their
Compliance Unleashed.
Yeah,
so
that's big news. We saw that come across email. That makes a lot of sense.
Well, and I always have this. So Steve, if you're watching, there's, the winning the fight and about compliance and compliance isn't very sexy.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that it's becoming something because they've been doing their own conference on their own. And I'm excited that they're doing something that's in conjunction because it will make it easier for dealers to be able to really dive into some of those things. And I've been watching as Steve's been taking that Compliance Unleashed to different state conferences too. And I'm like, bravo. I mean, it's like, I love when I see deep collaboration that is for the benefit of the dealer.
Yeah.
So
it does look like they're just outwardly looks like their attendance participation had been growing. It just, the challenge with compliance is one of those things that
it's just
dealers and their team need to know, but they don't want to go, and they probably haven't traditionally wanted to make a separate trip.
It's like, if I don't know, then no one can hold me accountable.
Sort of, yeah.
To this stuff, which is true about so many things. You hear the thing. It's like, are you sure you want to know?
Yeah.
Because once you know, you can't unknow. It's like, once you've seen something, you can't unsee it. So, so that was a pretty cool thing to observe. And then the dealer forum is happening this week.
Right.
And
starts Sunday, I believe.
Yep. So for all of you that will be there, I hope you have a great conference. Jim and I, we talked before that we don't do a lot of conferences anymore. And that's partially because, our track is virtual. And, we are happy to forge a path for others to join, and on bringing things to dealers more. So,
and it bears mentioning, like we wouldn't be out there particularly to drum up business. We're working on foundational pieces to allow us to scale our business. So until then, it's kind of that balance between working in the business and working on the business, bringing on new clients. I mean, obviously you're always going to, help those who come forward. But as far as going out and actively creating campaign and outreach, we just have kind of backed off of that because we're building.
We're building. Yeah, absolutely. There were a couple things that we had talked about, some October dealer data. I think we've covered industry news, and then we'll save the election stuff.
Yeah, and I'm going to have to bring back more on the October data. I barely got a chance to look inside some of that, and the data is kind of in pieces. Like not every group's members have submitted.
So if you're in a V8 group and haven't sent in your data yet, I know Jim's been working really a lot earlier on data because we have a funeral this weekend, and he's got meetings starting next week, and so he's like already been digging in So
Yeah.
it's
Next week will be interesting. It'll be the first time I've done back to back to back meetings, you know, with V8, and it'll be fine because we get the data out to everybody.
Yeah.
That's usually the pressurized part, is getting the data delivered to everybody.
Yeah. Right? And we really, it's been, you posted something earlier this week, that the numbers and it's pretty, I mean, that's pretty awesome.
It's not all of them, it's just
because
the one,
the more data that we start to be able to string together with data that we have access to, it's stuff that will just be on a very often basis, be able to bring things to the show. And we don't have to, we don't have to wait until we have a conference, or we don't have to wait to be able to, like, this is what's happening in the industry, or a monthly newsletter or whatever. We can talk about it as we go. And so it's been really beautiful to watch you just, get excited about being able to share the things that dealers that we're working with are experiencing, and perspectives, and what the numbers are showing, and all of that. So I just, shout out to I don't take much, if any, credit for V8. V8's been just like something that you've done and you put together, and I'm like really, really proud of you.
Yeah, I created a monster. Now I'm just trying to stay in the saddle. It's been fun. It has been enjoyable.
It has, but the numbers on that were just amazing. Of how many contracts, what dollar amounts are, and so
my point in sharing that was like 14,000 contracts. Of the dealers that I had data available, I just did some quick math on what kind of portfolios collectively they kind of represent. And I think the number was like 14,000 accounts and 170 million in receivables. And I just think people that are outside the industry, it kind of gives a feel, but mostly my point in sharing that was, this is the kind of collective experience that are in these meetings. People have real experience, and they're managing sizable portfolios.
And so I've just enjoyed you bringing pieces of the conversations with these experienced dealers to our audience on the podcast.
Yeah. So, and I can say one big thread it started in our October V8 meetings, and it's carried on into some of our client meetings in the month of November already. And that is this thing about, because I introduced as a case study, it's interesting the timing of this stuff, but I introduced a case study in our V8 meeting, and that sparked good interest, and we moved it to the same case study to the other meetings. And then I had somebody reach out that saw an episode of ours from last year when we did our Foursquare, when we did that kind of interactive Foursquare, or I think we called it playing with blocks. And it's all kind of in the same context, because what we set out to really examine was the affordability factor. Like, it started out as a study with a dealer because we were looking at their aged inventory and said, okay, why is this stuff not moving? And when we did the math, it's like, it's out of reach financially for most of our applicants. Right. And so when we started learning that, we started, okay, well, let's go back and figure out what is within reach. Let's take our typical applicant, typical income, and let's kind of work those blocks and figure out, what kind of down payment are we looking for? What's been our average? Where do we like to be on term? And it just kind of, that stuff is starting to help dealers see, oh, I'm a little overpriced, or, oh, I should have a little more gross. And, oh, if I bumped my customers' payments on average a little bit because they could afford it, then this would be the result. It's just, it's been really good, rich studies that we've done, great conversations with the dealers, and folks are kind of getting it.
Well, what's kind of fun that I've observed is that it's a dialogue. It's not just you saying, this is what the numbers show, is that there's a dialogue. And so there's questions back and forth between dealers. It's like, what did you do? How did that work? What's going on? And that it's as within the V8, because it is your home group is 8 dealers. And you get to know these 8 dealers. It's kind of, it's similar to in that, in a 20 group, that you have specific dealers that you get to know, and you get to know their operation, and you get to, you kind of dive behind the curtain. And so this is a little bit more intimate. and it's, happening frequently. And so it's been really fun to watch. And so,
One other
it'll be
interesting
fun
thing
to-
that happened out of just a meeting just last night. And I think it's kind of helpful to take folks inside what consulting for us, coaching looks like, and especially for me and my approach to it. I'm working with a dealer last night. We're working through some of the case studies and playing with blocks, so to speak, and figuring out what really fits. And when we got to the square about term, I asked them, I said, where do you guys like to be on term? And the dealer who's is actually partners, and one of them, they're very smart. And the one guy says, well, I don't know if that's the right question. Is like, where should we be? Like, we want to ask you, where should we be on term? And I think it's just an interesting reflection on, I come to that kind of thing as you guys, it's your business. Like, I'm not, it's that thing that we walk around. I make recommendations. I don't really tell people this is how you should do business. Obviously we're guiding them based on what other dealers do, but it was just an interesting thing.
But I'll tell you what I see from that I love. There's humaning.
Yeah.
We, with White Hat Way and things, we're always talking about humaning and the humility of a successful dealership to say, we don't know. We're, that we're willing to say that what we're doing could be better.
Right.
And we don't know. And so let's talk about it.
And that's part of why, this dealer forum that starts on Monday or on Sunday rather, dealers will be able to sit at a table with other dealers.
Oh yeah. I love that.
Anytime you put dealers at the same table on a certain topic, then there's an opportunity to learn. But as with a 20 group, as with a V8, peer group, is like, you're right. The humility to be able to speak up. And the thing I can tie that back to is when I wrote articles in the past about the people who attend the conferences, it's like, it's been my observation over the years, you see kind of the same people that are very successful and they're often on the front row taking lots of notes. It's like they have the humility to know they don't know everything. There's still more to learn. And I think when you feel like you know it all, then you close your mind and then you don't really.
And we've all, observed that on social and everything. Well, it's like, this is the way you should do it. This is, the idea that their model is the right model or the only model. And so I love, it's when one of the things that we wanted to do with V8 is this is a place to learn from each other and not a place to teach others.
Right.
It's a place to learn from each other. And so when you bring that energy, humaning, when you bring the energy of humility and I'm here to learn instead of I'm here to tell everyone how to do it,
right,
is a very different thing. So I'm really looking forward to getting the feedback. I love that the NIADA has created this structure because it's just so it's beautiful and it's impactful and it really allows dealers to teach each other instead of listen to a lecture.
Sure.
So
I got to throw something on the screen here that is it's something that I'm working with a business coach. We've got a coach that I've known for years and reached out to.
Yeah, we have we've had a business coach in the past, and we still have her as one of our advisors, and we've just recently engaged a new business coach.
And this is really in this context of business planning and kind of dialing in the sequencing and some of that stuff. But the coach said to me something that I hadn't heard, and he said he adopted it years ago after he heard it somewhere. And I think in this context of coaching, and the reason you're hearing me say, especially in this independent dealer space, like I feel like dealers, they're independent for a reason. They kind of want to be those mavericks and carve out their own thing and create a business model that works for them. But I think in my way of coaching, like I don't go in and prescribe and say kind of the way you said it on Facebook is like, I don't say this is what you should do. In fact, I try to not use the words need to do, should do.
Yeah. And how many times have you corrected me when I first stepped into the business? Yes. Gently and lovingly.
Just a recommendation.
It's like, we don't say need or should. It's like we strongly advise.
We can talk about that because I think it's something that, why do we say that? Because I believe dealers, their name is on the building. It's their business to run. Yeah. I'm going to make suggestions. Certainly we'll answer their question and provide them information based on what, we think would be helpful based on their question. But what the coach said, I'm going to put it on the screen. This was the statement. Prescription without diagnosis is malpractice. So I'm going to read that again. Prescription, like prescribing, if you want to put it in a medical context, you're out there prescribing medication without have a full diagnosis. That's malpractice.
Yeah.
And so I bring that to coaching. I mean, I think that's the thing where we want to understand the purpose. And so that's why when the dealer says to me, we want to hear from you what we should do. Well, there's a lot of things to understand about your business approach and what you're looking to accomplish here. And it goes back to cash flow versus equity. And there's a ton of stuff to know. But I think this is all why, we have to diagnose. And a lot of that is just interviewing them and find out what's the mission, what's the goal.
I love how you kind of pull that into like medicine, because we go to the doctor and we tell them all the things and they write a prescription and they tell us what to do. And then there's like, did it work? Are there other things I didn't talk about last time? Is this really the right thing that I should do? And the blindly following may, they may not know all of the things and understand. And so how many times have we had something big happening in our health that it takes going back and going back and going back until, doctors, it's a practice.
Right.
It's not a perfect.
Right.
It's a practice. So, and I love that because, we are asked at times to come and do a 2 or 3 day on-site, whatever. And there's an awful lot that we can glean from that because we've done it enough that we know the questions to ask and where to go. But you still, once you're finished with that and you step into an engagement, there is always so many more layers of the onion that you can't even scratch when you go and spend 3 days with someone. So it takes, there's a lot.
It's that discovery part. So, it's like, for us to go in there and say, this is what you should do. This is, because you really need back information, and it's about the old business strategy. Like, what are we looking to create? What are you personally, Mr. or Mrs. Dealer, looking to create? Right. It's like, what's the goal here?
And there's just to know there's, sorry to all you cat lovers, there's more than one way to skin a cat.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And everybody's fine with all those different ideas except the cat. It's only the cat that's not fond of any of them. Yeah. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
I find you so delightful. Thank you so much. And then I was there anything else on that front that you wanted to?
No, I don't think so. The little bit of data that I looked at did suggest that volume was up for dealers in October versus September, and versus we're currently tracking it versus a 6 month, like their prior 6 month average, and then over the prior month. And so at a glance, volume was up for the select dealers that I was able to get through this morning. And so we'll bring more back. I'll bring more data back from the results as they get, because this weekend a lot of that stuff will be coming together.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the last thing that we have on the agenda is to talk about the impact of the election. And I remember we did a show back in June where we kind of talked about like predictions for the election, something like that. Okay. I mean, it was a pretty sensational kind of title.
I think we said who dealers should vote for,
or something like that. And we proceeded to have a conversation about kindness, about character, about understanding that people have different perspectives, and being willing. It's kind of ties into this thing where a dealer will say, I don't know. And being humble and being willing to be able to listen and sit down and try to fully understand, the other people's perspectives. And because we sometimes get really, really entrenched in I'm right, you're wrong.
Right.
The whole black and white, the whole good. And so our take, I don't think was what people expected when we brought that. And it was right around the national conference, and it was, just like, let's just be kind. And we didn't say, this is. And so we were talking last night, and it was like, it seems appropriate to just remind everybody that there's new stuff on the horizon, and that we give each other the grace to navigate that.
Yeah.
And
I've been
there's
fascinated by, and of course, Michelle and I don't see a lot of news, but I think that I've been fascinated by, at least across social media and the places where we might otherwise intersect with news, the pause, like the post-election kind of hiatus that we're seeing, where it's just gotten quiet. And
we don't have the same Facebook friends, apparently.
Okay. So you're a little more,
Well,
a
and
little more stirred up.
and this is, well, it's interesting because I was raised very right-wing Christian conservative, very, very right. And so my loved ones still hold very, very true to that. And when I left my religion, I kind of threw politics out with everything too. And it's just like, it's all just, I was too much. It's too much. And so the journey since then, over the last 15 years, hasn't been, one or another, but just watching what's happening to people, and the divisiveness of much. And I remember the last election, I said something, I think we said something on the podcast, that the previous election, I was bombarded from both sides, because I've got very dear friends that are very firmly implanted in belief structures from either camp. And so I would watch this, and it was just, vile, both sides. And not an ounce of compassion from both sides, not an ounce of wanting to really fully, deeply understand where the other was coming from both sides.
It's a lot of shouting.
It was a lot of shouting. And so there was a lot of, silence for 30 days. And so I kind of had to clean it up, because I was just like,
Facebook has the snooze for 30 days feature, but I think they need one that says snooze till November 10th. They need one.
So I think I mentioned about 3-4 weeks ago, it's like, I was surprised that all of my friends and family were from both sides, were much more civil. Much more civil. It was kind of like, oh, I don't think that I had to silence anybody. And then the election happened, and I'm feeling like I want to silence people, and it's frustrating, because there's a lot of emotions out there that are around there's just a lot of really heavy emotions out there. And some of them might be on this end of the spectrum, some of them might be on this end of the spectrum. But I just, when I watch all of this, and it's like, I love, and I feel like I understand. And, we've had conversations where I understand where people, because I have and I have conversations, and try to understand all the different things. And I just, it's love, and being loving to each other, regardless of where you are, is wholly humaning. That's good stuff. And so my take on that, and Jim's like, let's not go all woo woo or whatever, but my take on that is to lean into love, to have a desire to understand why people feel the way they feel, and to find a path that everyone is able to be heard and is important.
Well, there are two words you said in that last little bit. One was understand, and the other was to be heard. And both of those require listening. And so I think there's just a lot of speaking and shouting. And I think, the first thing is kind of back to our thing about diagnosis. It's like, do you really fully understand like the thing? It's like, because I'm not seeing you open your ears and hear the other side and have a real dialogue. I see a lot of shouting, and everybody seems to feel strongly. And a lot of people have their own issue or their hot button thing that they're focused on that's really important to them. And I get it. I think for me that this election cycle, like always, I mean, since I could first vote, I've always voted character. And that episode we did back before, that's basically what I said. As car dealers or anybody, business owners, we really ought to vote character. And of course, for me, we've talked about enough. My feeling about that is when I choose a president, I'm really choosing a commander in chief. And I want to choose somebody who's going to represent me as an American in a summit or in a meeting with other world powers. That's who I'm choosing. So it's not about the social issues. That's not, the social issues to me really fall more to the bodies of the legislators. And so I think that's really more decided over there. Yes, my president can veto it, whatever, but I'm just kind of leaning on. And I think the other piece for me is what allows me to be, you might watch me and say, I'm disengaged, so I don't care. And that would be a mistake to think that because I don't step in and choose a side or add my voice, that I don't care. I trust this nation. I think we have a good system. Is it perfect? It's far from perfect.
I do too.
But I think our system of government is good. I trust. And I just kind of recognize, look, the reality is our president has limited powers by design. And so I think it's going to be just fine.
And it's also in, one person can look at something in one way and all they see is misery, and another person sees nothing but joy. Yeah. And so it's the same thing. And so part of it's something that I get, I don't know, woo-woo, whatever, is that we choose the energy in it. We choose, the people choose whether or not we want to buy into hate, decisive language, unkind things. I mean, it saddens me when I see the unkind things being said and where people are being objectified based on their party. And it's just like, I know wonderful people that I just love breaking bread with and having the important conversations with, that are very strong, have very strong feelings around these things. And it's like, it's so I just love and just being able to listen and to hope for the best. And that's
I expect the best. I think I trust in this nation. I think the consensus has kind of been one of relief. Like, thankfully that's finally over, and now we can all kind of live with what is, and we can move forward and make the most of it. And like I said, I trust this nation. I think as we relate it back to the car business and car dealers.
Thank you.
I think I think it. My sense is that it will be stabilizing. It's always there's always sort of this angst around the changing of the guard, but now that it's happened, the markets respond based on now we see what the future looks like, right? And so we can start to act but my sense is that it will be stabilizing. Will it go? If we have two people listening, will they both get out of the thing what they want? Probably not. You know what I mean? It's like probably not everybody's going to end up happy. but I think that the nation's going to do
Well,
well.
and it's been interesting too. I was telling Jim I was out running some errands and was waiting in line for something, and I was listening to conversations around me, and it was the day after the election, and listening to conversations, and I I was um surprised at some of the things that I heard, and not like unpleasantly surprised, but
Mhm.
I was just kind of surprised about some of the things that I heard, and I'm just, it's like if we can lean into love and hope that
Yeah.
we're going to be okay. I think that there's a lot of things that we can just rest easy on. As far as in buy here, pay here, will it change the price of a car at an auction? I don't know.
Can't say.
Can't
Yeah,
say.
we're not those kind
Will
of
it make our customers more successful? I don't.
I
Um,
mean, if you
will
listen to what
we
was
have less repos?
can't
I don't
say.
know. Can't say. Um, so
The stumping
yeah.
and the platform
hmm
suggests better economy, more money in people's pockets. So,
That
what
was
you
what
have
the
now.
conversation was, and it's people that were like really limited income.
Mhm.
I mean, like our customer
Yeah.
was who I was listening to, and to listen to their hope
Okay.
was like, okay, all
Mhm.
right.
Hope is good.
Hope is good.
Can't buy groceries with it, but having positivity
Mm-hmm.
around the future
Mm-hmm.
is good for consumer confidence, which is
Mm-hmm.
typically, people buying and feeling comfortable about tomorrow. That's obviously
Yeah.
a solid thing, but we'll just have to see where the numbers land. But I
Yeah.
think, we're not going to try to predict what that looks like, but it does feel like it'll be at least stabilizing. We can at least now, know where we're at and kind of know what kind of policies are likely to be in play, and and just go back to doing business.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Because we tend to pause an awful lot when there's a big election that comes up,
Mhm.
and so it's I'm excited for the next moving into the next years,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the opportunities, and yeah, and
For sure.
yep,
Shall we wrap up
humaning.
there?
Love and
Michelle wants to
humility.
close on that.
Yeah.
I'm going to close with this reminder about the dealer forum. This is where you go to register.
Mm-hmm.
Folks are probably already headed to the airport to get to New Orleans for the weekend, but that's how you get yourself enrolled for that. And hope a lot of people will participate in that.
Yes. So it is Friday. We've got a good weekend coming up. We've got an interesting weekend coming up. And just hope you all have a beautiful time in the fall with your family and loved ones.
Absolutely.
And we will see you on Wednesday with the White Hat Wednesday. And thank you so much for joining us and being a part of our journey and our family on the air. So have a great day, everybody. Talk to y'all later.